Hello. This is obviously a little strange. We'll have to get used to talking to ourselves in empty rooms and hoping that people are listening. My name's Lizzy Hawkins. I'm the acting head of responsible business in a government team called the Inclusive Economy Unit, which is in the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. And I've been invited today to talk about the government's perspective on responsible business. And I'm going to take the opportunity to say a bit about some of the very early thinking that's happening within government about the positive role that business can play in recovering from the COVID-19 outbreak. So, in short, the government's view of responsible business is very much business done right is a force for good in society. And that's not just because of the positive social impact that responsible business behaviour has, but also because businesses that are focused on the well-being of all of their stakeholders, so their employees, their customers, their suppliers, their local communities, and indeed the wider environment, those are companies that are in it for the long term. And those are companies which then we are more confident are going to give us longer term economic business growth. That said, the government, we believe that doing business responsibly and thinking about how to have a positive impact on broader society is something for an individual business leader to decide on. And the role of the government is first to set the floor for what acceptable behaviour is for a business. And that's why we put in place employment law, corporate governance law, consumer protection laws, etc. And the role of us as encouraging responsible business is to find ways to enable and encourage businesses, and particularly business leaders, to find ways to have a positive impact, to look at who their business is in contact with and have a really positive, the most positive impact that they can have. Now, this all sounds very abstract, so let me just give you a couple of examples of businesses which have really thought hard about having a really positive social impact. And you'll hopefully first of all know about the co-op. Even before the COVID outbreak, for many years, the co-op has been very focused on how it can have a really positive impact on the world around it. And so it's, for example, most recently it had a program called It's What We Do, which is about supporting local community spaces, reducing waste, thinking about the environment, looking after suppliers, programs to support their suppliers, and also work to support the health and well-being of their employees. So it's that approach of looking at all of the individuals that the co-op's existence touches and thinking how to improve the impact on their lives. And that ethos, that sort of social purpose, meant that since the outbreak of COVID, they've been able to respond really quickly to, for example, provide millions of pounds worth of products to FareShare to support people who are in need of food. They've been raising money for the National Emergencies Trust through their existing fundraising mechanisms, and they've been using their network of community activists, which they call member pioneers, to either set up or to support the networks of mutual aid groups that are happening around the country. So that's a big example that we'll all know. The other example, which I like to talk about, is a company that's doing something that's very close to my heart, because they're making beer, and I'm a big fan of beer. Toast are a company that make beer from bread that would otherwise go to waste. And that in itself is a very positive social purpose. They also give some of their profits to organisations that are trying to fix the food chain and the food supply chain to reduce waste. again, that social purpose has meant that since the outbreak of COVID-19, they have been able to move very quickly to move their support to the places where it's most needed, and do that in a way that's really consistent with what they do as a business. So every sale of a beer from their online shop buys a meal for someone, because they have partnerships with charities which are getting surplus food to people who are really in need of it. So those are just a couple of examples of companies which are doing their best to think about how they can have a positive impact while also being really successful and effective businesses. So I said earlier that the government, our role is first of all to set the floor, but then also to encourage and enable businesses to think in this socially purposeful and socially responsible way. So let me say a little bit about how we have been doing that in reality. Now, we do that by thinking, what does a leader of a business need to do in order to start on the journey of becoming a responsible business and a socially purposeful business? So we think of three things. First of all, a leader really needs to believe that their business can deliver greater value for all stakeholders, that it's about that there is value in looking after employees and suppliers and customers, etc. And that they need to ask themselves difficult questions about what it means to actually do that in reality. Secondly, once they've started on this road, we see business leaders of these companies think about, how can I really maximize that impact? I'm stronger working with other people. So they start to form partnerships. And then finally, we want these business leaders start to talk about what they're doing and start to say, I want to be held to account. And I'm going to set targets. And if we don't meet those targets, then I want to know why, and I want to work to fix any of the problems that are doing that. And the work that we've been doing in the Inclusive Economy Unit to do that has been really built around those three parts of the journey. So, for example, in terms of building belief, we want to support this thriving network of responsible business thinkers and campaign groups and activities that are promoting all of the great work that's going on, and making more business leaders aware of the possibility of sort of socially purposeful business. So one example is our department supports the Buy Social campaign that Social Enterprise UK runs, and that encourages people to buy products made by social enterprises. And they also have a really interesting Buy Social corporate challenge, where they've got some of the UK's biggest companies to commit to spending collectively £1 billion with social enterprise. So you've got PwC, you've got Johnson & Johnson, you've got Nationwide, and numerous other companies have signed up to this this Social Enterprise UK campaign. The second element is finding ways where businesses can have a greater impact by partnering with others. And our flagship project on that is something called the Inclusive Economy Partnership, which is an initiative where we have brought together businesses, civil society organisations and government to find new ways of working in partnership to address social problems that are holding people back from fulfilling their full potential. So those social problems that we've focused on particularly are young people transitioning into work and youth unemployment, mental health at work, enabling employers to really look after their employees' health and well-being, and financial inclusion and capability, so supporting the financial well-being of the millions of people in the UK who are financially squeezed and in problem debt in some cases. So that work has been led by a leadership group of some of the UK's best known companies, such as Co-op, and National Grid, Unilever, Accenture UK, as well as some of the leading civil society organisations, including the National Lottery Community Fund, Esme Fairbairn Foundation, and Unlimited, among others. And the work that we're doing aims to amplify great work that's happening already. So we've been working to promote Mind's Mental Health at Work Gateway and get that out to businesses so that all employers can see it as a one-stop shop to support their employees' mental health. We've been working to scale up effective solutions that we found in these areas. So, for example, we have run a partnership accelerator where we use the really strong network that the Inclusive Economy Partnership has to work with social innovators to scale up the solutions that they have in these areas. And finally, we use our power as government, informed by the expertise of civil society and the resources and networks and skills of businesses, to innovate and bring people together where there are problems that haven't yet been addressed. So, for example, we have begun work on the first ever cross-sector best practice standard for debt collection and recovery, so that people who are in problem debt and owing money to several different organisations are treated in a compassionate and understanding way that is consistent between the different organisations that are seeking to get their debt paid. Finally, I talked about how responsible business leaders want to be transparent about what they're doing. There's two things that I'll mention briefly here. First of all, you'll see a lovely purple logo for Purposely. I've noticed purple seems to feature quite heavily in our logos here. That's not a deliberate choice. Purposely, we develop with Unlimited and Bates Wells, and it's a tool. You can go online, search for Purposely, and it helps companies to embed social mission into their company's articles. So to make a really clear statement, a transparent statement that this is the social purpose of this organisation. Secondly, we know that it is extremely hard to account for non-financial social impact, and that actually in the future to have to enable people to make meaningful choices about where to invest and where to buy from, there need to be more consistent reporting standards for social impact. So we've been working with partners, including the Impact Investing Institute, the Impact Management Project, the Future of the Corporation, to try and create a more coherent set of reporting requirements and reporting mechanisms to help companies be really transparent and accountable about their social impact. So that's almost the approach that we take in business as usual times. And I think that journey of building belief, developing partnerships, and holding and being accountable is still the case, and is in many cases even more important than ever since the outbreak of COVID-19. But let me say a little bit about what's happened now and what's happening with the COVID-19 outbreak, because what has amazed me is the energy and the outburst of offers that we have had from businesses across the country, and I'm sure that you've seen it too, just really, really wanting to help, really wanting to be part of the solution in this really difficult, horrible time. And so, of course, so many of us, we want to make the most of this, and we want to keep hold of that momentum. And now we're starting to think about the recovery from the outbreak. We want to look at how we, within government and outside of government, can be bringing that responsible business ethos, that businesses are part of the solution and can be part of fixing social problems. We want to bring that into the work that government, civil society and business is doing to respond. So let me just give sort of 3 pointers to the early thinking that's happening in government about where we think businesses can have a really strong role to play, and perhaps what you might want to be doing and getting involved in. The first is in the government's levelling up agenda, which you may have heard about. Yeah, it's very clear that there are huge inequalities across the country, and those are only being exacerbated by the outbreak of COVID-19. So part of the thinking about recovery is really focusing on what's been the impact of COVID on communities. And there's going to be a big focus on communities and on local action, and thinking about what's the role of business in doing that. Now, I know I'm talking to an Oxfordshire business community, and you actually have an excellent local enterprise partnership that's really very advanced in thinking about the role of business in solving social problems. So I would suggest definitely, if you're interested in being part of that, talk to Oxlep and find out what they're doing. I'd also suggest talk to the indefatigable Grant Hayward, who I believe is in the room for this. He's heavily involved in driving a lot of the work around responsible business in the region. If you're interested in learning more about how you can be involved in solving social problems and connecting with the local community, please do talk to him. So levelling up is one element. The second thing that we've seen during the outbreak is the importance of partnerships between different parts of society, whether it's local community groups or central government as a connector, or businesses or charity sector. We have been, in my team, connecting huge numbers of offers from business with asks and needs that are emerging from the charity sector. We've been working in particular with the national brokers platforms Volunteering Matters, who connect professional skilled volunteers from business with charities and VCSE organisations. We've also been working with business in the community, who've established their National Business Response Network, which pairs up asks from charities with offers from business and using their existing strong network across the country. So we're going to be thinking more about how we can keep those networks and those connections and those partnerships thriving, and how we can build that momentum for the future into the recovery and beyond. And then finally, we are asking within government how the recovery can help deliver the government's commitment to a net zero target by 2050. I've got the logo for COP26 up there. I think there is a huge amount of thinking going on about the role that that plays in the recovery, and particularly about the role that businesses can play in that. So, to summarize, there is more and more momentum and enthusiasm that business has a really positive role to play in making a great contribution to society and solving social problems, and that's never been more evident than in businesses' response to the COVID-19 outbreak. We want to build on that. We want to be involved with you building on that, both locally and feeding into national thinking that we're doing.